What's up, Desktoppers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and today I'm joined by Eric Wood, your 2021 NPC North Americans overall champion, and he is under 2 weeks out from the 2023 New York Pro, which is his pro debut. I'm pleased to welcome Eric Wood to Desktop Bodybuilding for another one-on-one interview. Man, how you doing?
Doing really good. Yeah.
And as I mentioned before at the start of this interview as well, a lot of people don't know you in terms of like a lot of people have seen your physique lately, but they don't know you in terms of your like who you are really, like in terms of a competitor, even what you've done in the past as well. Because when I saw you actually win that NPC North Americans a couple of years ago, I'm like, this guy looks great. I love his physique, but he's probably a couple of years away. And now it's that couple of years later,
hmm
and you look ready, man. So I'll bring up some physique updates from you, but how does it feel now to start to get that attention from the bodybuilding community? Because I saw you on they mentioned you on Fuad's podcast the other day as well.
hmm It feels great. Um, just try not to overthink it too much. I don't know what to expect. So just kind of rolling into it like every other show.
Yeah, and this conditioning, man, like the other one here, I'll go back to the first physique update here. This was 4 days ago, so you were what, I think 19 days out in this update. And I've seen some like before and after photos, and your gains, like you've gained exactly like 50 pounds in 5 years. So you've been gaining 10 pounds a year consistently, and you haven't blown anything out. Everything stayed tight, and it looks like you're in better condition than you
hmm
were 5 years ago as well. So I suppose, how old are you firstly, and how tall are you as well? Because I believe you're about 245 pounds here as well.
Yep. I'm 27 and yeah, about 245 right now in the morning and like 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, pretty much the ideal height for bodybuilding. And
Right.
dude,
Yeah.
27 years old, because a lot of people that are your age that look anything like you or anything that's like towards that sort of development, they're being, I suppose, talked about in a huge, huge way. So I think you're one of those guys that have sort of gone under the radar a little bit in terms of your
Mhm.
physique, because it has been a few years between being on stage. But seeing this
Yeah.
conditioning and seeing these updates, you're working with Patrick Tuor, so I'm not surprised at the level of conditioning that you have here. This one was just posted, I think, yesterday at 2 weeks out of a New York Pro.
Mhm. Yep.
How's it been working with Patrick, man? Because I know that he is a hard taskmaster. He's worked with Aaron Pilates, as I mentioned before this interview, who's a friend of mine, 212 Pro out here in Australia. And he said, he had no cheat meals for 16 weeks or something like that. So how's it
Yeah.
been for you, man?
It's been really good. Pat's been great. Prior to going with him, I was having like stomach issues, um, just digestion issues and all that. And so worked with him starting last year, and he really fixed, my digestion, got everything back on point. Um, and I just feel good, like the cheat
Yeah,
meals, they're good. They taste good, but it affects me in a negative way.
for sure. Just in terms of like gut issues, like is it like
hmm
bloating or?
Yeah, bloating, like even like constipation. Like a half hour before going on stage, North Americans, I was on the toilet in the stall, like 30 minutes before going on for prejudging. It's like a rock in my stomach. Um,
Yeah,
so like I was doing it was right there, yeah. And you
yeah.
can see my stomach's a little. Did a burger and fry, and it just didn't sit well. So working with Pat has been very good.
Sometimes that burger and fries thing, like some guys swear by it because you're obviously getting the extra sodium, the extra calories in, and you got fats in there as well, so you're filling out a bit too. But it seems to give that look like everyone says, "Oh, I look so much better the day after," where you got the vascularity
hmm
and you're full everywhere, so you look crazy in a singlet. But you don't have that same look. Sometimes guys lose that look, sometimes in their back, sometimes in their midsection, where they seem
Right,
to be a
right.
little bit watery. So it's a bit of obviously a trade-off, but yeah, when I saw this physique from a couple of years ago, I was like, this guy with another 20 pounds might take him 3 years or so. You've done it in two, which is great and awesome. So congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
But has that been the goal to gain like 10 pounds a year?
Not really so much a goal, just like is being strict in the off season and seeing how far, seeing how much you can gain. I know with Pat, we started this prep at 253 fasted, and now 2 weeks out, I'm only 7 pounds down from that.
Wow.
just really improved my body composition.
Yeah. So you've gained muscle during a prep as well?
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's so cool. So I want to get to know more about you. So what do you, obviously you said, I said, what do people want to find out about you? And you said, oh, bodybuilding, man, I'm pretty boring. But everyone has something, where did you grow up? How did you get into bodybuilding? How did you find this whole industry?
So I grew up in Canton, Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
Like an hour south from Cleveland. And yeah, I mean, I was like into sports and stuff, playing basketball growing up. But being 5'9", that stopped at around middle school. Got to high school and everybody got taller than me. But I was always like involved in sports, just, active. And then my older brother brought me into the gym when I was around like 15. And just from there, I started making friends in the gym and then going more consistently, and ended up doing my first show at 19. So I got into it kind of young. And I actually did teen nationals. That was my second show. And placed second there.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Yeah, I had no idea about any of that. So you mentioned you were like into basketball and stuff. Did you get to go see LeBron James play at all when he's in Cleveland or anything like that?
Yeah.
Oh man, so jealous. I'm actually a Cavs fan, so I called my dog LeBron. So
oh yeah.
So yeah, been a Cavs fan
when they won the finals in 2016.
Oh, for real?
It was crazy.
Because they actually won the finals when it was actually in Golden State, that last game, that game 7. So were you like at one of those watch parties or?
Yeah, it was a watch. The whole, like, all downtown was just filled with people. Like, it was crazy.
Did you go to the parade or anything?
I didn't go to the parade, no.
How many were there, man? Because it was something like, I know it was over like 1 million or something. Yeah, that's what I bought, 2 mil.
Crazy.
That's insane. How was like the whole city, man, during that time and the whole area? Because I imagine everyone was going crazy because it was the first like championship in Cleveland in 50 something years or something. How was the city at that stage, like around that time? Like was it just all everyone was talking about?
Oh yeah, it was like as soon as they won, everybody went out onto the streets, and just everyone was high-fiving each other. It was a really fun time.
And I remember, obviously, before that, when LeBron left, I remember actually just getting the updates on my phone, being like, because he's going to make his decision. I was getting the updates, and dude, I was depressed. Like, and I'm here in Australia, and it's like it's just my team that I go for. I imagine, like, how was that like around there? Were people like, obviously, people were burning jerseys.
Jersey, and you're talking when he left the first time.
Yeah,
yeah, like burning his jersey, and then the Cavs went like. I think they did like 19 wins that year. Dead last.
It was bad.
Yeah,
but that's cool, man. I obviously had no idea. But do you get into anything else outside of like basketball or follow any other sports or anything like that?
I'm a Browns fan too, but they're nothing special. But living in Florida now, I'll probably go to a few Buccaneers games.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So obviously you're training out of MI40 gym out there now, I believe.
Yep.
Which is obviously sort of like a famous gym, and a lot of guys tend to pass through that gym as well. Do many guys come in there now and train? I know Kamal, I believe, was out there for a little bit.
Kamal's there, yeah. And then Derek's there. A lot of pros. But
have you had a chance to talk to many of either of those guys and get any advice or anything?
Yeah. I talked to Derek just the other day, and we went through some posing together and talked to Kamal. All really cool guys.
Yeah, I've spoken to Derek a bit as well, and he's stayed very grounded and very humble as well with all the success he's having, which is super cool to see because it's not always the case, when guys sort of hit success, and he's had a pretty quick rise, obviously winning the 212 Olympia and then going on to get second in the Open, which is crazy. But has he talked much about what, like, really he's remained the same person. So I love it when people do that. And sometimes you get something that you see, I suppose, what people put out to the public, but what he does in private as well. And, even just the messages he sent me, guys like him, Flex Lewis, who I was just talking to before this, and, for those guys to be complimentary towards you, I bet that means like a whole lot. And I'm sure he's been pretty complimentary towards you and how you're looking now.
The guy that trains with Kamal told me that Kamal said I look peeled the other day. He's like, that's when you know you're in shape. I was like, oh, that's always a good feeling.
Yeah, because Kamal's obviously like the king of conditioning, pretty much.
Oh yeah,
he comes in
he looks
peeled to bone.
Crazy.
Yeah, for sure. That's obviously got to be motivating training in that environment.
It is. It helps a ton. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
just the equipment they have there too, and everything.
for sure. Now, obviously, competing in this New York Pro lineup, I've been sort of adding to a running list of who might be competing there, and I'll rattle off some of the names. You've got like Max Charles, obviously, I've got yourself on there as well. Tonio Burton, who's jumped into the lineup. Carlos Thomas Jr., Joe Seaman, Stuart Sutherland, who's looking really good. Nate Spear, who always brings conditioning. Brent Swanson, who always brings great conditioning as well. Robin Strand, I think he's doing it, and then potentially Sergio Oliva Jr. But as far as I know right now, he still can't travel, so that's one that's up in the air. But how do you see yourself matching up against guys like this? Because I really, from an outside perspective, I'm like, I just need to see you next to guys to really
That's
know
kind of what
where
I
you're going
think.
to land.
Yeah, I just got to see myself next to them. I think it'll definitely be a conditioning show, um, just based on that lineup. Um, but it's hard to say, because I improved a lot since 2021.
Oh
20,
yeah,
like probably going to be about 20 pounds heavier with better conditioning. So I don't know. I'm excited though.
yeah, and on your physique as well, like on a physique that where you have a tight waist and you've got that crazy conditioning, 245 is, in 20 pounds looks like a lot more than on a guy that, is maybe already 280 or something like
Right,
that. Like
right.
a Samson Dowd, I mean, he adds 20 pounds and he obviously looks crazy and takes that next step. But I think 20 pounds on your physique would be more impactful. Do you have any, I suppose, goals or anything for this show?
I always said I wanted my first pro show. I wanted to crack top five. That would be, you know, I'm realistic with my expectations, but I would be content with. But again, I don't know where everything's going to land. Um, but at the end of the day, my main goal is just to beat my last look, and that's kind of all you can control. So I already think we did that, by far.
I was going to say that. I'm like, dude, I think you got that one covered pretty well. Not taking anything away from that look, but it's just you seem to be a guy that has a physique that when you add muscle to your physique, your aesthetics actually improve because it seems like your waist has stayed the same. And I'm sure it's, maybe added a little bit to your
Mhm.
waist in general because when you add mass, it's hard to keep that waist the same. But it seems like your aesthetics have improved. Have you noticed that on yourself as well?
I just noticed, just like the wider my back gets, the illusion, it makes your waist look smaller. Same
Yeah.
with the legs, the better quad sweep, your waist is gonna look smaller. So yeah, I think I've always been cautious. I wanted to keep my midsection in check. So, and that comes with, part of the reason I wanted to get with Pat was just I know he's good at containing the midsection, picking the right foods for your body, and because it's hard to gain that mass while keeping the stomach in check.
Yeah, and I want to bring up as well your 5 year transformation. I'll just share my screen so people can see this because it's pretty wild. Let me just pull this up. And Patrick's a guy that seems to. I'll change my screen there. Patrick seems like a guy that is really set on guys not blowing out their midsection, and
Mhm.
he seems like he's pretty conservative on the side of, I suppose, health overall. Like he
Right,
doesn't,
right,
he pushes guys with conditioning, which obviously, no matter what, if you're going to be 4% body fat, it's probably not going to be healthy. But
right.
at least he takes those extra precautions because I
Mhm.
know that when my friend Aaron was working with him, he had him taking a million health supplements and all that
Mhm.
sort of stuff. Does he have you sort of on the same
Yeah,
routine as that?
all the different vitamins, multi-mineral, all that fish oil, um, alpha lipoic acid, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And I love hearing that stuff as well because I know that I've been the same way when I do things like that. And the alpha
mhm.
lipoic acid is obviously to help the, so you don't oversecrete insulin. So you're getting that nutrient uptake from the
Right.
carbohydrates and all that sort of stuff. So he does all those little 1% things. And I think that's why a lot of his athletes, get in such great condition because
Yeah,
they don't
exactly.
have that crazy high inflammation as well.
Yeah, and with we got blood work done too. Get that done. I think I got it done. When maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Just make sure everything's in check because when everything internally is clicking, then it's just going to make you look that much better.
Yeah.
Got to
And
take care of your insides.
and not to give away all his secrets, but does he have you doing any sort of alternate therapies and stuff? Because I know Aaron was doing like ice baths and all sorts of stuff.
He just said get deep tissue work done
Yep.
once a week, and that helps a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really dig in like quads and all that, getting the back, and I feel a lot better. Just get that done once a week on my rest days, and that's something I didn't do in the previous preps. So
Yeah. Almost unlocking like another I suppose a lot of guys say, in terms of like PED use, they're like, oh, don't blow your load at once and use it all.
right.
Don't start with the harshest compound, so you've got somewhere to grow and somewhere to move. It's almost like the same thing, like you can add in all these extra things as you go, because you're obviously gaining phenomenally so far and you want to keep that progress going. Do you think
Exactly.
that you can continue to gain, like, obviously you're not going to gain 10 pounds a year for the next 5-10 years,
Yeah.
but like, do you think you can gain, maybe 5 pounds a year going on for at least a little bit till you get to that sort
I
of, I suppose, Olympia level?
I think so. I think that's possible.
Mm.
Last year, taking 2022 off, that was the first full year I had off since I started competing. I started at 19. So in 2015, every spring, I would do a show. And
Wow.
then after turning pro, that was the first full year I had off, and the transition to working with Pat. So I don't know. It's tough taking a year off because I like competing, but I think it was necessary. So if I could do 5 to 7 pounds a year um, of solid stage weight, for the next 3 or 4 years, I think that's definitely possible.
Do you find it hard taking like a year off where you're not
Yeah,
competing?
definitely.
Because obviously you've got to ramp up the food, you've got to push all that
Mhm.
sort of stuff in that sort of way, and you don't have that end goal of being
Yeah,
on stage. Were you able to stay 100% committed to it, or were there lapses during that sort of
overlaps.
period?
Yeah, where I would get, you get so tired of eating over and
Mm,
over, and then you're just lethargic and you're heavy. So I just like competing too. It's fun for me. That's the whole reason why I do this. So taking last year off was it got a little boring,
yeah.
but it made me appreciate this prep a lot more. Because it reminds me how much I miss it. I don't miss being hungry and tired all the time, but that's just
Mm.
part of the deal.
What made you pick the New York Pro as your first show?
Um, at the time, it was when I was living in Ohio, so it's about a 6 hour drive. Um, but really, I just know that's a very prestigious show, and it's just one that I thought would be the best one to get my feet wet in the pro league.
So you didn't get Steve Weinberger tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Do New York," as we've heard a few times.
No, but he was the head judge at North Americans the year I turned pro.
I'm surprised then, because I've heard many times he's like, "Do New York as your pro debut." I've
Yeah,
heard that quite a few times, so
that
I'm sure he'll be
used to be the
happy.
night of champions.
Yeah, it did obviously when Wayne D'Amelio was running things and all that back in the day, but obviously it's got a that bit of prestige as well. Like you can get the
Right.
New York Pro ring and all that, so
Mhm.
I think it is a prestigious show, and I'm really surprised, like the last couple of years, that there wasn't more guys jumping into the show in New York, and everyone was leaving it to, I suppose, later in the year. But I think it's just how it worked out for everyone's prep a lot of the time. And I think this year, like the New York Pro, I was sort of worried about it in a way, leading up to it, because I didn't know you were doing it. I didn't know a whole bunch of guys were doing it. But now seeing the names I've got written down, I'm like, this top five is going to be nice. Like, it's going to be a nice competitive show without anyone being the clear favorite. So are you
Right.
happy with the sort of lineup you're competing against, because you get to see where you're at against
Right.
the
Yeah.
new crop?
Hmm. I think for a pro debut, yeah, it's a very good. I thought there was going to be more big names in it, uh,
Mm.
before picking it at 16 weeks out. Um, but yeah, it's definitely more motivating knowing that kind of it's up in the air for anyone.
For sure. Do you have any belief that you can win a show this year?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Love that. What's the plans in terms of competing? So just say you do New York, you place top five, but don't get the win. Will you compete then in the Cali Pro and any other pro shows coming up after that?
I was going to run it by Patrick. He said just hold off and see how New York goes.
Yeah.
I told him I'd like to do Cali, but that's a week apart, so it'd be a lot of travel in between there. Um, because I fly back to Tampa on Monday, and then I'd fly out to LA probably Thursday. So I would like to do Cali. I know as an amateur, I always looked really good the week apart. If I do a show and then reset and peak again, that the week 2 weeks apart is like ideal for me. So
Yeah.
if not,
I mean, obviously, you're not. Sorry, you go.
if not Cali, probably Toronto if I get a passport in time. But we'll see.
Yeah, awesome. And some guys, obviously, that that advantages of them. Like it seems like the more they compete, the better they get. Like an Ian Valier, he seems to do that. He does one show one week, and then the next week or 2 weeks later, he sort of gets a little bit better. And I think
Right.
you can sort of once you see yourself on stage, you go, okay, well maybe I was a little
Exactly.
flat there, or I
Yeah,
was a little
exactly.
bit too full, or whatever. So, and also the other thing is having too long a gap between shows. You're trying to hold that condition
Oh
for an
yeah,
awkward period of time,
that
and
is
yeah,
the when I did USA, I did USA's in 2021, and I took second. I lost by a point behind Jordan Hutchinson.
oh yep,
This was 2021, and North Americans was 4 weeks after that, and that was the longest 4 weeks of bodybuilding ever. That was like because I just wanted to. I was in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to start eating again now in August and all that because it was the end of July was the Mr. USA, but then decided last minute. It was like 2 or 3 days after Mr. USA's. I was texting my coach at the time. I was like, hey, let's do North Americans, and that it was. I'm glad I did it now because I turned pro, but that was just a long 4 weeks.
Yeah, man. It's almost the most awkward, like 4, 5, 6 weeks is almost the most awkward time frame, I think, between shows. And obviously it's taxing on your body. Obviously we know at this level we're not, just taking creatine. So it's like you've got to do certain things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it's sometimes I almost think that like 14 weeks between a show would be easier because you've got a little bit of time to just take a little bit of break, add a little bit of body fat back where
Yeah,
you're a bit more
exactly.
comfortable, and then come back down.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the ideal time, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. But obviously, if you were to, obviously break out, get a pro win in 2023, and would you go to the Olympia or would you sit it out?
Yeah, I feel like you almost have to if you qualify. I would have a hard time sitting that out. I'd still bring my best, but yeah, I don't think I'd be able to sit that out. I'd run it by my coach, obviously, see what Pat says, but yeah.
And I think even just getting that stage experience.
I'm realistic. I know I need a few years before I can get up there with those guys.
Yeah, against the big boys, because obviously it's coming into a really impressive era, I think, in bodybuilding right now in terms of the quality of a Mr. Olympia lineup and how deep it is. It's, I mean, everyone sort of talks about it, but I think it's almost not talked about enough at how crazy it is. And it seems like it's moving towards an era where a lot of the top names in the Mr. Olympia are becoming more aesthetic because you've got like the guys that are really being talked about, like an Andrew Jack, Samson Dowder. You've got still Brandon Curry up there. You've got Derek Lunsford, and Hardy Chupin isn't a guy that's just a blocky, horrible shape guy or anything like that. So there's a ton of guys that have that great shape and great aesthetics. Do you think this works in your favor at all in terms of comparisons?
I think so, definitely. As long as I can just keep adding size and keep the waist tight, not blow out the midsection. But yeah, I think they're definitely going that route for more aesthetics.
Do you do anything to keep your waist tight in particular? Like, do you do vacuums or wear like a waist trainer or anything like that?
I did. I used to wear a waist trainer, but I don't know how much that actually helps.
Man, I actually wore one for a short period when I was prepping, and I think like any bodybuilder, you think, oh yeah, I'll put it on, but you always like put on a bit tighter than you think you might need to, just in case you're not putting it on tight enough. And did I put it on so tight? I actually felt like I had some sort of, I don't know, I felt like it did something to some sort of organ, and then my heart started racing. I'm like, this isn't good, and I just never wore it again. I was paranoid, but I think there's a level where you can do it up too tight, and I was like, yeah, I think I crossed that level.
they're uncomfortable. You got, especially like, because I was sleeping with one on, and I was like, I don't want to wear this.
Yeah,
I think vacuums are good in the morning, and again, just keeping inflammation down in the gut, eating foods that digest well for you.
Absolutely. It's really like a few different. Everyone says, oh, you do vacuums and that's the only thing, but really, if you're eating all these things that are pro-inflammatory to your body, it's probably going to inflame your gut and it's probably going to cause bloating issues. And then if you've constantly got your stomach hanging out in the off season, then obviously it's probably going to hang out a little bit, more when you're lean as well. So Mm. And I heard actually Fuad talk about this, and he said that in his off season he'd always get big, and your stomach would come out, but it'd always come back. And then he said one year it just didn't come back, and then he's like, oh,
Oh yeah.
so that's obviously something you want to be
Mhm.
wary of as you go through your career as well. But being so young, being 27, I imagine, like I can't imagine being in your position, but all I can imagine is thinking like years down the track. Is it hard to not think several years in advance when you are so young and you think about the potential where you could get to?
Um, yeah, I try not to get too far ahead of myself and just kind of just take it, one prep at a time, one off season at a time. Uh, and it's just comforting knowing I got a coach like Pat, like guiding me down the right path. So it's definitely exciting though. I think as long as we can keep the midsection tight, keep growing and adding size in the right areas, I think it's definitely a bright future.
Absolutely, man. Well, it sounds like you got your head screwed on right, man, and you're only, what is it, 12, 13 days out now, so it's super close to your
Yeah,
pro debut, and
getting
I'm
close.
excited for you, man. It's going to be a great pro debut. I have no doubt. Even if you messed it up somehow a little bit at the end, I still think you're going to look absolutely phenomenal.
Well, thank you, man. I
So
appreciate it.
no worries at all, brother. Now, what's your Instagram handle so people can follow you, and how do people get in contact with you? And do you have any sponsors you want to thank as well?
Instagram is Eric X Wood, ERIC X Wood. Um, and no sponsors at the moment, none of that. So
Well,
just do my own thing.
I assume, dude, after the New York Pro, you're probably gonna have a few people knocking on your door, and if
Yeah,
not, man, reach out to a few
there's
because
there's a few right now, but I talked to Pat about it, and he was saying maybe I think hold off, see how New York goes, and don't commit to anything just yet.
I love it, man. It's like NBA players when they like turn down the contract, they're betting on themselves. So
Mhm.
I love
Yeah,
that, and I've seen that go wrong a few times, but I don't think it can
right.
really go wrong for
Yeah.
you. So.
Mhm.
But man, very, very exciting. So yeah, if anyone wants to contact you, they can contact you through Instagram if they do want to obviously sponsor you or do anything with you. So anyway, man, thank you so much for doing this interview. I'm super excited to see the pro debut, and we'll be covering it all here on Desktop Bodybuilding, doing like lives and all that sort of stuff. So everyone, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way, you won't miss out on any of my coverage at Desktop Bodybuilding of the 2023 New York Pro. There's going to be a pay per view as well, which I'll be putting out there too. So people can watch along and then comment live as we go live on YouTube. So, man, thank you so much for doing this one on one. For myself, Xavier Wills, Eric Wood, only 13 days out of his pro debut. We are out.